Everybody, welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to go over how to make our own word balloons for comics, whether web, print, whatever, in Affinity Designer. If you aren't aware, Affinity Designer is an alternative to Adobe Illustrator. It is much more affordable. There's no yearly subscription at the time of recording this video, and it's a very great vector-based program. So if you're doing any vector-based work outside of word balloons, like maybe logos, a lot of artists like to work in vector to begin with. This is a really great program, and it's very robust and very it does almost everything that Adobe Illustrator can do. I just wanted to show a couple of the word balloon options here that I have showed in the last, I think, comic video that I made. And I just want to go over a couple things to make life easier when making some word balloons. One of those being how to make the fancy borders. So that's going to be the focus of today's video, just because it is a more complicated process, and I think that would be more interesting to most people versus making a rounded shape and then just adding a border stroke to it. So I'm going to go ahead and hide all this, and we're going to get started. So what I'm going to do is kind of be interesting, I guess, and use a square, just because I think it'd be kind of fun to try. I'm actually going to use a rounded corner and just kind of, I think that works, not nothing too drastic here. So I don't need a border on this because we're making a border, we just need the shape. And the first thing I want to keep in mind is how interesting I want this to be. So I can go ahead and just start copying and pasting this word balloon and rearranging it wherever I want. I can start changing the size of it and making a little bit of depth here. Maybe I want that to stick out a little bit more. Maybe I want it to be a little bit more rectangularly. It's a word, it is now. And then just kind of keep doing that. And the point here is we're just making our own overall shape, right? You can see this silhouette. It's very blocky, but has that nice rounded look. Maybe this is like a speech border for like a robot or something, or a sort of mechanical type bubble or something, who knows. Lots of things you can already think about for that. And let's see here. Now it will get a little messy at first when you start making a lot. Actually, let's make this even thinner. Do that. You can see it in my layers, all these rectangles here. I'm not really going to worry too much about that because I just need to get this silhouette done. Now, if you really wanted to, you could use the pen tool. Actually, let's this a little bit more interesting. There we go. You could use the pen tool here and go ahead and start making points, and that can be your shape. But I found myself getting really hyper focused on where, like, the overall shape, and it didn't feel as organic, right? So, whoops. Keep moving the background gray here. You lock that layer. I'm not going to go over like the ins and outs of how to use Designer. I just want to focus on the speech bubble border. All right, so this is pretty interesting. I want to add a little bit more to it. Let's see. I want to go to layer effects by right-clicking and kind of blur this a little bit. Kind of add some dimension. Might be a little too much, but that's okay. And we'll just kind of add that around here. There we go. All right, so this isn't very patterny yet. So, but it's something interesting. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm actually gonna change this here. And I'm getting a little focused here. There we go. There we go. I'm just going to group this. So this is my initial shape, right? So now I can go ahead and copy and paste it. I'm going to click and drag it over here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to transform horizontal. And the reason I want to make it pretty much the same but flip it, mirror it, is when I go to make the final design. I don't, I want this to be repeatable. And I want to make sure that it doesn't have like a weird gap that's noticeable. So here in the middle, what I can do now is I can go ahead and continue to add some shapes around that corner. I want to fill in and just touch base with you in just a couple minutes. Alright, so that's my final shape. So I'm just going to group all of this together and say this is the weird shape I'm going to try out for my word balloon border. And we can go ahead and squish it, or if we want to see what else it looks like. I'm just going to leave it for now. And now that I have this design, I want to go to this little export persona up here in the top left-hand corner. And what this is doing is it's going to tell Affinity Designer that we want to take this shape we just made and export it out. So once we click it, we get into this, looks the same except we lose all the tools. Things change over here on the right hand side as well, and our options up on the top. And in the layers, we now have a tab called slices. So slices are basically, we want to take everything in the box that we're going to make, which is a slice, and export that. Now, the nice thing is instead of taking the whole shape, we just want to make sure the top and the bottom are fully in place within this sliced box, right? Make that a little closer, because we don't really care if it's repeatable on the top and bottom. It's the size we want to be repeatable. So here we can make sure we're like hitting the right areas. That way when it goes to repeat, it's seamless, right? It starts here and then ends here, but then begins so you don't see the difference, right? I think that works. And we can always adjust it if you don't want it to be super repeatable. Like if I want to leave it off here, I could. And this isn't going to be perfect the first time. You might need to make some adjustments later, but that's okay. But I have a slice, I'm happy with it, close enough. And I want to export just the slice. And you can actually see a preview here where it's just the shape we made. We're going to hit export slice. So ideally you want a folder or a single place to put all of these slices that you make. I made one which was Affinity Custom Brushes. I'm just going to make a new folder just to make it easier called Word Balloon Borders. Just for the sake of the tutorial. I'm going to hit export. Now, you can see up here under export options, you have a bunch of different presets. I left mine as just PNG because I want it to be transparent. I didn't change anything else up here. I left it exactly as is. Now, ideally, you would also want to rename this slice. So let's say we'll call it like block border. And we can export that slice. You can also see, now if you, so that we named it block border, if I click on these little arrows, I can actually just export this by itself as well. You can see how, like the size I want to export it as. I can double or triple the size. So if this was like a small vector that I made, I'm like, oh, that's too small. I want to expand that more or enlarge it. I can do that here. I'm perfectly fine with the size set right now. I have a name. I'm not worrying about the border or the path. It's all one group, and I can hit the export here. Now here you can see in my word balloon folder, I have 3 things here. It exported everything that I had sliced up previously. So we're just going to not worry about that, and we're going to save just the single slice that we want. Hit save. So now if we look at the export, we have the black border. However, we're noticing that gray is in there, and we want to get rid of that. What we want to do to make sure that only this shape exports, we want to make sure we have our group selected. and we want to hit create slice from that group. Now we can go to this little arrow here if we want, or I'm sorry, the purple box, and click on this, and we can adjust the shape for the slice. If we go to slices, I'm not going to rename it because I don't need to. You can go ahead and export it, and I can just say black border 2. Hit save. Now we can see it's the same border, but without the gray background. I'm not entirely sure why it includes like other stuff behind it immediately, but I found that by just deleting the slice that is automatically created originally, and then clicking on the group and then hitting create slice, it only creates a slice for that specific group versus everything that's visible in that area. Now that we have that made, go back to designer, just clicking this icon up here, and we're going to just make a simple shape here. We're not going to worry about this being a perfect word balloon. So next we want to go to brushes. If it's not there, it should be under, let's see, view. I'm sorry, no, under window and then brushes, and then I'll pop that up for you. And we want to go to these pizza boxes here. There are these 3 lines under the brushes layer, or panel. We want to go to new textured image brush. Can't speak. We want to click the one we just made, which is the black border 2. And that is the correct one. So now we can see it with the other brush that I had shown in a previous video. And we click on the bubbles. This is what it looks like. Click on the black border. That's what that looks like by default. Anything we want to change from that point on, we have to go to edit brush. We can do the brush width, make that smaller. You have it repeat. That looks really interesting. You can change the width, do the size variance. It doesn't change this too much, because it's not a single stroke, it's just a repeatable border. And if we wanted to, with a single stroke, we can fade it out. Alright, so I'm actually going to take a rounded. There we go. Rounded square. Going to kind of make that a little more. That's close enough. We're going to apply the square brush to it. Now, if we want to make that width bigger, we can. You stretch this out, break that down a little bit, and see how that has a really weird blocky texture. And if you don't like where this is ending in the pattern, what you can do next is go to these red bars down here. I'm gonna try and make this a little bigger. Oh, I cannot. If you change the position of these red lines at either side, if you look up here, this is where it's repeating. And change how that pattern is repeating, or the start and end. So I could say I want it to start there. There we go. It actually looks a little better. Now it blends in a little more. And then you can start repositioning your shape, see how that looks, changing the brush width, make it smaller if you want. Break it down. I think it looked better kind of like this. And increasing the size a bit more. And the fold and overlap and pull is just how the corners are going, because this is like a pattern brush though, it's not really going to affect it too much. Let's see. Cool. We also do that up here. There we go. So the line is just how the stroke is aligned to the shape. You can see actually it's a solid white object now, whereas this one, it has this little bit of a ring around it. And that just gets rid of it because that's going on the inside of the shape. So let's see if we actually changed fill. There we go. You can see how that is now inside the shape versus outside, which is pretty cool. So you get some really interesting effects from that. If you want them to have a color, whoops, you would have to go to layer effects and color overlay, and then you can change it to whatever color you want. That's the only, I guess that would be kind of like not a deal breaker, just kind of annoying that you can't just change it in the swatches, but you can still change the color with the layer effects. So if you wanted this to be red, you could do that. It's pretty cool. You could do black, and then you can change the fill of the shape to white. Oh, I can't because I have the overlay. But I would actually need to copy and paste that, take the stroke off, fill that with white, turn off the layer effects. There we go. Let's see. That a little bigger. It's not perfectly centered, but close enough. So you can get a pretty neat look from that. There we go. That looks better. You can just resize things as needed, move them around, change how things are repeating. Have some fun with it, you know. Looks pretty neat. And that's how I made my word balloons. It's really just a little bit of trial and error to see if it's getting you the shape and appearance that you want. So if I went back to stretch, it still is pretty cool. It has that kind of brush strokey look to it. There we go. We can make that thinner. Let's change how it starts and ends. So it's really just stretching it out here. Nothing too exciting with that though. I think if I were to want a more fancy look, I would just take the bubble one and just hit stretch, and it has a nice multiple stroke appearance. I would just have to go back and fix the repeating edge here. I think that would just have to be something I have to go back and redo the brush for. But otherwise, yeah, that's just how you make the brushes in Affinity Designer to make your fancy borders. It's nothing, it's trial and error, like I said, to see how it really is going to show up in the final product. And you can just go ahead, modify it how to, you know, to your heart's content, re-export it, and move that slice. And you can always just delete the slices. You don't have to actually keep them. I deleted all the original ones I made and just made them all over again. So I would take this group here, create a new slice, go back to edit that. Oops. Create slice, there we go. And I could just start and stop here if I wanted. Go back to my slice tab, export it, black border 3, hit save, and go back to designer, new textured image brush, hit border 3, and yeah. Click the wrong shape. There we go, black border 3. So it looks not exciting at all. So we probably wouldn't want something like that. Maybe on the outside. Yeah, it's got a little bit of a variation here. So just something to, you know, mess with and play with, see how it looks. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next tutorial or art video that I create. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.